Hey everyone, my name is Catherine Gaffney. I go by Kate, but Catherine's what I put on here. This is my kind of overarching capstone presentation over the past couple of months and what I've been working on. Obviously, you can see it as over differentiation in the social studies classroom. This is for the master's degree for instructional technology, which I've been working on since, oh gosh, I guess about 2 years now, and graduate or hope to graduate in December. Before I kind of go through this, a little bit about me and where I'm at and what school and everything is I am a fifth-year teacher from Hillgrove High School, which is in Cobb County near KSU. I did my undergraduate degree at University of Georgia in social studies education. I feel like in that time I was able to learn a lot, and now being at Hillgrove High School, I was able to implement this lesson, or this whole capstone presentation, I should say, there in that context. Now, looking at this problem statement, this is what I kind of understood going into this whole capstone project was Cobb County as a whole, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to do this switch to online virtual learning, which was really hard for a lot of teachers just because we had never really been trained on what that kind of learning looks like or what that kind of teaching looks like. And so we were just kind of thrown to the wolves, if you will. However, I quickly realized that even as we started to come back into the classroom and we had this hybrid model that we were using as a school and as a district, that we as teachers were trying to teach online and in person, and it was really hard for us to do both without using technology. But once again, we still really had not been trained on certain tools that would be helpful to implement things into our class. Therefore, the solution that I came up with was going to be some sort of professional development. That was kind of my thought initially, and then it kind of took off, focusing specifically with social studies education, since that's what I am the most confident in terms of content areas, but also how to use those tools to differentiate not only for different levels of students, such as gifted learners versus general education learners or whatnot, but also to differentiate between in-person learning and then also online learning and trying to make that connection and make it work. Now, in terms of my plan, which I'm sure y'all have read my report and all of that stuff as well, but my plan overall was, like I said, to sit down and create some sort of professional learning seminar. I know we as teachers are extremely busy, just like every other person in the world, so my goal was to try to make something that would stay under an hour, but also to make it very applicable to the social studies content in particular. So what I decided to do, and this kind of goes in my second bullet, is I decided to create a sample lesson that I could kind of use to present to model what these Web 2.0 tools could be used for in terms of a classroom setting, whether that be online or in person, and trying to promote differentiation between groups of students. Now, I also, after presenting these ideas, I also wanted to come up with some sort of little handout or, way for teachers to kind of remember what we talked about in this seminar, because I feel like, or at least what I've noticed, when teachers go to professional learning, if it's something that's completely new, especially with technology, a lot of times teachers leave the meeting or the seminar and they're like, what did I just sit through? Like, they're just overwhelmed with everything. So I also plan to create a handout that kind of gives a guide as to what all the tools were that I was going to go through. Also, my kind of follow-up to all of this was, it's great to sit down and have professional development, but if there's no real follow-up to it, then what is it really doing? So my goal was to sit down and have follow-up meetings with each of the teachers who attended, so that I could help them kind of plan their own differentiated lesson itself. The goal for evaluating this whole thing was, one, at the very end of the seminar, to post a Google form, like a survey link with these 4 questions here. So once again, it's more focusing on saying, hey, do you feel confident as a teacher to use these tools that you've learned about and take them into your own classroom? As well as, do you feel like these Web 2.0 tools, whether it be the ones that we talked about today or other ones that you've heard of or are interested in, do you think those also would provide benefits for your students, and what are those tools that you want to learn more about? And then also this whole coaching experience, my goal was just to get other teachers in my department to use the web-based tools that we kind of talked about, such as Flipgrid, Edmodo, as well as like quizzes and Kahoot and all those kinds of things, using those tools and then actually applying them to their class for review or creating some sort of critical thinking assignment or whatever that looks like for them. My goal was to get at least 50% of the teachers to implement some of these tools into a lesson. And then my goal was to have 80% of the teachers who attended the platform, or excuse me, attended the like professional development seminar to leave feeling more confident in using the platforms that we kind of discussed or their technological abilities and things. Now, in terms of actually applying this plan that I had into what my lesson was going to look like, in particular, what my capstone would look like, I had to make some modifications over the course of the couple months as I was working on this. So as I started to sit down and plan this seminar and plan what I wanted to talk about and plan how I was going to use these tools, I started to realize if I used all of these tools like quizzes and Kahoot and Edmodo and all these things in one lesson, it was going to overwhelm people. So I decided to use a couple different lessons across the semester that I had used some of these tools for, and how I kind of incorporate them into my own class, such as Canva and having students make infographics and things using that platform, and so on and so forth. So my goal was to, once again, or my switch, I should say, was to show teachers on a smaller scale how these tools could be used, and then also to sit down and kind of incorporate these platforms into their lessons. I quickly realized, especially as a social studies department at a high school level, generally those are the teachers that are coaching at least one sport, if not multiple. So my department, we have about 17 teachers in it. There are 15 of the 17 who coach. So all that to be said, getting all of us on the same page to sit down and have a time for professional development, as well as finding time to have conferences with people and do one-on-one meetings and things like that to try to support their own development as educators, it was really difficult. So it kind of transitioned into having, as opposed to having 3 meetings per person or per teacher, it turned into maybe 1, maybe 2 if I was lucky to try to work through that. And I was able to meet for a 3rd meeting with one of the other teachers, but it was just kind of a challenge to find that time, so I had to modify in that way. Also, like I said, I was working to, try to work with these teachers to plan one whole lesson and use these Web 2.0 tools. But once again, as I kind of referenced in my own planning of the seminar, I quickly realized that it was really hard for one person to use all of these tools in one lesson, but it also was very, it just didn't make sense. It was very cut and cut up, and it wasn't necessarily a good use of those tools. So instead, most of my coaching kind of turned into how can we use these tools in smaller settings, or every couple days, or every couple weeks, or for this activity, or whatever that looked like. So it was more focused on smaller parts of a lesson as opposed to a big overarching, lesson itself. Now, in terms of my results, overall teachers, every teacher who came into the seminar, there were about 7 of them, they said that they did feel more confident in incorporating the tools that I discussed, so that was a positive. Also, there were more teachers who, after I had, done this presentation or whatever, these teachers, along with others in my department who did not even get the chance to attend, came to me and said, hey, I'm really interested in one of the tools that you talked about. So-and-so was talking about it in the hallway, and it sounds pretty cool. Would you mind sitting down with me and showing me how it works? And so I was excited that there was this continued interest and continued growth, not just with the 7 teachers who I was able to talk to, but also across my department. I also feel that just looking at my own classroom, as well as looking at the ones or the teachers that I was able to coach, I was also able to see that students did appreciate the differentiation, and it worked for a lot of students, just because a lot of the tools that we used had read-to features or other options to be able to use in person and online. So it was overall helpful for every student, which was also a big plus. In terms of my reflection, overall, this couple months has taken a lot of patience. I will say that is definitely something that I, as an individual, have been working on as a whole, not just involving the capstone, but just in general. I am a person who likes to have things done quickly and efficiently and all about that. But this kind of ties into the troubleshooting piece. It's really hard when you are working with older older colleagues who are not necessarily as intuitive when it comes to technology and trying to figure out, oh, like, of course this button would be under the settings tab, or, looking for certain things involving these tools. So it definitely took some patience and a lot of troubleshooting on my part, as well as trying to help my fellow teachers and colleagues gain the confidence to be able to troubleshoot on their own. That was definitely a challenge that I had. Also, I would say time management is a big piece of this, because with time management, of course, like I said earlier, my department, most of us coach and are a part of clubs and have our own families and things like that. So the time management piece for myself, as well as trying to find the time to sit down with my colleagues, was also very difficult. So my goal overall, even after implementing this whole capstone, I kind of have talked with my admin team to realize, hey, this is a need not just for my department, but also for a lot of other departments in our school and potentially at the county level as well. So I would like to kind of make this a yearly presentation, whether it be focused on just social studies Web 2.0 tools, or potentially getting into other content areas. Obviously, the content areas like math, for example, math is not my strong suit, so I would definitely need to partner with a math teacher and try to figure out what are the tools that would be beneficial for them, but also working to try to bring that camaraderie across our school as a whole. I think that would be very beneficial, as well as using the technology piece to differentiate all at the same time. Overall, these are my copyright acknowledgments. Once again, everything on here is my own knowledge and background and my own presentation and everything. But this little KSU logo down here at the bottom is something that I did take off of a public domain. So if you have any other questions, once again, please feel free to reach out. Overall, this capstone experience has been really rewarding. It's also been very enlightening. But I look forward to using what I've gained from it in the future.